Thank you very much for your patience. Now, I'm pleased to announce that the 5th Tokyo Global Dialogue, organized by JIIA, A World in Turmoil, How Can We Rebuild International Security Cooperation? Its opening program is now starting. First and foremost, on behalf of the organizers, Mr. Kenichiro Sasae, President of JIIA, would like to deliver words of welcome. I am Sasae, President of the Japan Institute of International Affairs. Thank you very much for your participation in the 5th Tokyo Global Dialogue. At JIIA, in order to effectively disseminate our research outcomes in both Japanese and English, we compiled back in 2019 our first strategic annual report on the occasion of our 60th anniversary and held the first Tokyo Global Dialogue that year. This year, all sessions are to be held in person for the first time since 2019. This year's theme is A World in Turmoil. How can we rebuild international security and cooperation? The latest annual report has highlighted the 3 fronts of war in Ukraine, U.S.-China relations, and the Middle East crises, and the added destabilizing factor of division within the U.S. It has analyzed international affairs and made policy recommendations for Japan. The roundtable preceding this session brought together global opinion leaders to discuss these issues and dimensions from a global point of view. Indeed, the world is now in turmoil, and democracy and the wisdom of the international community are being tested as we speak. This dialogue, originating from Tokyo, has served a critical role as an international forum for discussion, bringing together top experts over time. We sincerely believe that it has played a significant role. We sincerely look forward to the active discussions and recommendations from the speakers for the 2 days. Prime Minister Kishida and Minister Kamikawa, thank you very much for your presence. Prime Minister Kishida will be delivering opening remarks of this meeting. Following Prime Minister's speech, for Minister Kamikawa, who is adding the grace to this event through her attendance, will deliver the keynote speech as well. Finally, on the occasion of the start of this event, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the corporate supporters and all participants from various fields. With this, I would like to conclude my opening remark.
Now, we would like to call upon Prime Minister Kishida to give us remarks. Prime Minister, if you please. Good evening, everyone. I am Kishida, Prime Minister of Japan. Congratulations for having the 5th Global Dialogue in Tokyo. I would like to offer my heartfelt congratulations. As was mentioned by Ambassador Sasae, the theme of this year is A World in Turmoil. Currently, we are witnessing ongoing Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And also, since last year, we are now witnessing new catastrophes surrounding Israel and Palestine. And Japan itself is facing the most severe and complicated security environment since the end of World War II, including North Korea's nuclear and missile activities and unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force in the East and South China Seas. With the international community facing increasing tension, it is no exaggeration that the world is indeed in the midst of turmoil. At the same time, however, global challenges such as climate change, infectious disease, and food and energy crisis are all pressing problems. We can't waste any time at all. Countries must put aside differences in ideologies and values in addressing these problems and work together to defend human dignity and build a better future for all of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, as a peace-loving pacifist nation that has been contributing to the international community throughout the post-war era spanning nearly 80 years, what role should Japan play in these troubled times? Japan has consistently contributed to regional peace and stability based on the Japan-US alliance and has worked hand in hand with our ally and like-minded countries to maintain and strengthen a free and open international order based on the rule of law. At the same time, we have engaged in assisting the progress of a number of emerging countries and worked hard to promote global development. The countries concerned now have a significant presence in the world as the Global South. I am convinced that Japan can lead the world towards cooperation based upon our track records thus far, not division and confrontation. I think Japan can lead the world in that way. To this end, it is essential to strengthen relations with the United States, who is Japan's only ally. At the invitation of U.S. President Mr. Joe Biden, I will make an official state visit to the United States in April and will hold a Japan-U.S. summit meeting. I have been working with President Biden on various issues such as the realization of a free and open Indo-Pacific region, issues in Ukraine and the Middle East, based on deep mutual trust. During my official visit, President Biden and I will reaffirm our commitment to bolstering cooperation between our two countries in order to maintain and strengthen a free and open international order based on the rule of law, and we will also discuss ways to drive global economic growth together. Our partnership with the Global South is also important. At G7 Hiroshima Summit last year, we made the strengthening of our engagement with partners beyond the G7 one of our key perspectives. Together with the invited countries, including those from the Global South, the G7 confirmed that we would work to address various challenges facing the international community. Based on this achievement, we will promote our own style of finely crafted cooperation, focusing on the rule of law and human dignity together with the Global South, which has been growing its influence in international community, including ASEAN and India, our partner in driving forward the Indo-Pacific region, and Brazil, the G20 presidency this year. With President Ruto of Kenya, who visited Japan this month, we have confirmed our cooperation for peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and Africa. Pacific Island countries also have deep historical ties with Japan. We are long-standing friends with each other connected by the sea. Through the 10th Pacific Islands Leaders Meeting, or PALM 10, to be held in Tokyo this July, as well as bilateral efforts, we continue to support regional unity and the efforts of Pacific Island countries themselves, discuss common issues such as climate change, and work together while learning from each other. Amid increasing tension in the international community, world leaders must renew their awareness that the future of humanity is in their hands and, driven by a strong sense of responsibility, must continue their efforts towards world peace and prosperity. With unshakable conviction and determination, I myself will continue to engage more actively in summit diplomacy aimed at leading the world towards cooperation rather than division and confrontation. I really hope that the discussions at the Tokyo Global Dialogue will serve as a guide for Japan and the international community to overcome the current turmoil and to build a stable international order and cooperation, and that to this end it will be a valuable source of lessons and ideas for us, the policymakers, to take on board. I really hope that the Tokyo Global Dialogue will be successful. With this wish, I would like to end my intervention. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your speech. Prime Minister Kishida is excusing himself from the stage. Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Please give us one moment to set the stage for the next program component. Thank you very much for your cooperation. We would now like to invite Foreign Minister Kamikawa onto the stage to deliver keynote speech. Minister Kamikawa, please come up onto the stage. Mr. Sasae, President of Japan Institute of International Affairs, distinguished participants, I am Yoko Kamikawa, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Japan. It is a great pleasure to be invited to speak to you today on the occasion of the 5th Tokyo Global Dialogue held by the Japan Institute of International Affairs, one of the leading think tanks in the field of diplomacy and security in Japan. I am just back from G20, so my throat condition is not perfect. I may have a small cough during the speech, but please bear with me. For about 5 months since assuming the position of Minister for Foreign Affairs last September, I have traveled domestically and internationally a total of 12 times and visited 23 countries. One of the most impressive moments was my visit to Israel and Palestine as the foreign minister of the G7 presidency immediately after the deterioration of the situation. I met with the families of the victims and was heartbroken to hear the sentiments of those who suddenly had their beloved family members taken away. I also visited Ukraine at the beginning of this year and held a foreign ministers meeting in Kyiv during an air raid. I have heard that the theme of this year's Tokyo Global Dialogue is a world in turmoil. It is with this experience in mind that I feel indeed that the world is in the midst of a time of great change. I believe that there are three major issues that need to be addressed through diplomacy in order to bring stability to an international community in turmoil. First, how to maintain and strengthen the free and open international order based on the rule of law. Second, how to manage the intensifying competition between nations and defend peace. Third, how to protect individuals and human dignity, especially of vulnerable people, including women and children, from the effects of conflicts and global challenges. Today, I would like to share my thoughts on these three issues. The free and open international order based on the rule of law brought many benefits to the international community during the post-Cold War era. In addition to defending individual freedom, it provided the basis for peace and prosperity in the international community, and many developing countries have achieved economic growth under this stable order. Maintaining and strengthening this order is becoming increasingly important today as we reach a turning point in history. In particular, relatively less powerful and more vulnerable countries and peoples need the rule of law. In recent years, however, this order has been under serious challenge. Russia's aggression against Ukraine for over 2 years now has posed a blatant challenge to this order and shaken its very foundation. The future of the free and open international order based on the rule of law depends on how we confront Russia's challenge. We must reaffirm this now that Ukraine is facing a major predicament in the face of a prolonged aggression. Russia's aggression against Ukraine is not a problem that is confined to Europe. As Prime Minister Kishida has stated many times, Ukraine today may be East Asia tomorrow, and Japan will never accept this aggression, which is a unilateral attempt to change the status quo by force. This is why Japan reiterates its firm commitment to support Ukraine. On the occasion of the 2-year anniversary of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, the G7 leaders' video conference was held on the 25th of this month, and a statement was issued by the G7 leaders. Also, at the G20 foreign ministers meeting held last week in Brazil, which was also attended by Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, I stressed that Russia's aggression against Ukraine is a great challenge to the rule of law, which each country should uphold, and that Russia must stop its aggression and achieve just and lasting peace in Ukraine as soon as possible. I myself visited Ukraine in January and saw with my own eyes the fresh scars of this aggression. I reaffirmed my conviction that such a challenge must never be accepted and conveyed my unwavering support for Ukraine. On the 19th of this month, Japan held the Japan-Ukraine Conference for Promotion of Economic Growth and Reconstruction in Tokyo. At this conference, we successfully launched cooperation with a total of 56 cooperation documents as an outcome, announcing measures to promote investment needed by Ukraine, as well as a commitment to focus on 7 areas ranging from emergency recovery assistance to the phases of economic construction and industrial enhancement. We also discussed women, peace, and security, WPS, as an underlying topic in the construction and recovery process from the perspective of protecting women and children who are particularly vulnerable in wartime, and promoting women's participation in humanitarian assistance and reconstruction. The public and private sectors will continue to support Ukraine's self-sustaining development and reconstruction. At a time when the future of the free and open international order based on the rule of law is at a crossroad, we need more countries in the international community to endorse and actively support this order. To this end, it is important to work with developing and emerging countries in the global south, which have become increasingly influential in recent years. These countries have diverse historical backgrounds and values, and the world in which their influence is growing will also become more diverse. Therefore, the task of strengthening the free and open international order in this new world will not be an easy one. Alongside a firm commitment to our own values, we need to have imagination and humility to better understand one another. In other words, an attitude of co-creation is required. In this respect, Japan stands in a unique position among advanced democracies. Over the years, Japan has conducted a fine-tuned diplomacy that values the diversity of its partner countries, respecting their cultural and historical backgrounds, and listening carefully to their voices as equals. In my own diplomatic activities, I have witnessed firsthand the high level of trust and expectations placed on Japan by countries in the global south. Here today, I would like to touch upon specific ways in which we can cooperate with these countries. First, we will work to promote the rule of law at both international and each country's domestic levels. International law, including the UN Charter, is a common principle to which all nations, including those in the global south, are committed, and is the basis for peace and prosperity even in the changing times. At the G7 Hiroshima summit, G7 leaders from invited countries, including those from the global south, share their recognition of the importance of the rule of law and the principles of the UN Charter. One important aspect of achieving an international community in which international law is observed in good faith is to enhance the role of international courts. Earlier this year, I visited the International Court of Justice, ICJ, and the International Criminal Court, ICC, in The Hague, the capital of international law, and the International Tribunal for Law of the Sea, ITLAS, in Hamburg, to convey my strong support for the role these courts play and to offer Japan's full support. First, Japan will work together with like-minded countries to encourage countries that have not made declarations of the acceptance of ICJ's compulsory jurisdiction or have not ratified the ICC Rome status to do so. Furthermore, we will continue our efforts to promote the rule of law within each country through careful dialogue. Japan has supported the development of legal systems in Asia and Africa. Taking advantage of this experience, we will further examine how to strengthen cooperation with Africa in the area of the rule of law through this year's TICAD ministerial meeting, among others. We will also seize the opportunity of Palm 10, the 10th Pacific Islands Leaders Meeting, to contribute to strengthening maritime law enforcement capacity. In addition, in order to promote the rule of law at both international and each country's domestic levels, it is essential to foster human resources in these fields, and we will further enhance our efforts to contribute to the training of personnel. As Minister for Foreign Affairs, I intend to comprehensively pursue diplomacy for strengthening the rule of law in the international community based on a co-creation approach. Second, we will continue to work vigorously to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific based on the rule of law. The vision of FOIP, which Japan has consistently advocated, is to ensure peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and the world as a whole by maintaining and strengthening the international order in the Indo-Pacific region. The vision of FOIP is shared by many countries and regions, including ASEAN, India, of the United States, and Europe. And as our FOIP, we are presenting an optimistic and robust future to the world. This vision is inclusive, open, and diversity-oriented, and the door to cooperation is always open. In working with the Global South, FOIP provides the foundation and vision for cooperation. As indicated in the new plan for FOIP announced by Prime Minister Kishida in Delhi last March, Japan will further expand practical cooperation that will benefit the Global South under the vision of FOIP in the areas such as the rule of law, cooperation to enhance resilience and sustainability, connectivity, and maritime security. In particular, I would like to emphasize here the importance of the sea in FOIP's vision. The sea is what connects us all in terms of trade, the movement of people, and the environment. It gives us possibilities and a future. To this end, the rule of law must be established also at sea. This perspective was emphasized during my recent visit to the Pacific Island countries and in the Latin American Diplomacy Initiative that I announced during my recent visit to Latin America. The horizon of Japan's diplomacy stretches far beyond these countries as far as Africa. In the vast Indo-Pacific region, Japan will continue to make concrete efforts to promote the rule of law. Third, we will work to strengthen global governance. In order to ensure the free and open international order based on the rule of law for the future, it is essential that each country participate in governance with a sense of responsibility. Brazil, which holds the G20 presidency this year, has also set global governance reform as a priority issue, and I myself explained at the G24 ministers meeting last week that in tackling global governance reform, it is necessary to return to the starting point of human dignity and promote people-centered international cooperation based on the concept of human security. We must accelerate our efforts to strengthen functions of the United Nations so that it can fulfill its original role in addressing the urgent and serious challenges of the current international community in the face of a growing number of issues that must be addressed beyond national boundaries, such as conflicts, poverty, and global challenges. In particular, the UN Security Council has the primary responsibility for maintaining international peace and security. Japan, as a member of the Security Council, will work vigorously to ensure that the Council can continue to fulfill its original responsibilities as it should. From this viewpoint, Japan, as President of the Security Council next month, will lead discussions on issues facing the international community. On March 18th, we will hold a ministerial meeting on the nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation towards the realization of a world without nuclear weapons. Japan is currently advancing realistic and practical efforts towards a world without nuclear weapons. We have decided to establish the Japan Chair for a World Without Nuclear Weapons, which was announced in an address by Prime Minister Kishida at the UN General Assembly last year in research institutes and think tanks in the United States, Europe, and Asia.
Also, through next month's meeting at the UN Security Council, building on the result at the G7 Hiroshima Summit in May last year, including G7 leaders' Hiroshima vision on nuclear disarmament, we will aim to accelerate substantive discussion between nuclear weapon and non-nuclear weapon states with the participation of nuclear weapon states. We also intend to hold an ambassador-level open meeting on peace building and conflict prevention, taking into account of perspectives of women and youth, and to listen to the voices of the global South, which is currently facing difficulties. This will never be easy, but we will never give up on Security Council reform, even though it may be difficult. We will continue the efforts of G4, which is a framework with Brazil, India, and Germany, and further pursue a Security Council that is more relevant to the new era, while supporting better representation of Africa. So I would like to move my topic to management of interstate competition and maintenance of peace. Now, Japan is now facing the most severe security environment since the end of World War II. As Japan's Minister for Foreign Affairs, it is my most important responsibility to protect Japan's land, sea, and airspace, as well as the lives and the property of its citizens. Today's world, particularly the Indo-Pacific region, has been facing historical shift in the balance of power in recent years. As you may be aware, but there are many destabilizing factors and risks in the region surrounding our country, including North Korea's nuclear and missile activities and China's unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force in East and South China Seas, tensions across the Taiwan Strait, and Russian military activities. Under these circumstances, an important responsibility for Japan in the Indo-Pacific region is to make a positive contribution to building a stable balance of power in this region. This will deter any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force, thereby preventing war in the region and preserving the peace of today. As the international community enters a period of transition, the importance of preserving the peace that our nation has enjoyed to date cannot be overemphasized. As was mentioned by Prime Minister Kishida, first of all, unity between Japan and the United States is essential. The Japan-U.S. alliance plays an indispensable role not only for the security of Japan, but also for the realization of peace and stability in the international community, including in the Pacific region. For the U.S. commitment to the region be maintained and strengthened, broadened and deepened cooperation between Japan and U.S. at the concrete level in the Indo-Pacific region is of vital importance. In this regard, under the Kishida administration, the Japan-U.S. alliance has been strengthened as never before under the strong leadership of Prime Minister. As Minister of Foreign Affairs, I was able to have a exchange of opinion with Mr. Blinken, and I will make every effort to ensure the success of Prime Minister Kishida's official visit to the U.S. in April. Now, in addition to Japan-U.S. solidarity, it is important to build and expand a multi-layered network of allies and like-minded countries, including G7, Japan, Australia, India, and U.S., Japan-U.S. Republic of Korea, and Japan-U.S. Australia, and Japan-U.S. Philippines, and to further strengthen cooperation with partners including ASEAN, Australia, India, and ROK, and Europe. India is one of our most important partners with whom we share values and strategic interests. With India, our self-defense forces now conduct joint training exercise in all types of military operations, land, sea, and air. And January last year, the first joint fighter exercise between Japan and India was conducted. We would like to further promote cooperation in the areas of defense equipment. Under the Special Strategic and Global Partnership, Japan and India will cooperate to fulfill its responsibilities or our responsibilities for peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region and the world. The Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, which Japan concluded with Australia and the United Kingdom, is also very significant as it broadens the scope of Japan's security policy. Going forward, we will also emphasize cooperation with the Philippines, which, like Japan, is a maritime nation and an U.S. ally. In addition to making steady progress in Japan-Philippines and Philippine-U.S.-Japan cooperation, we hope to finalize the RIA negotiation with the Philippines as soon as possible. In November last year, at the Japan-Philippines Summit meeting, Japan decided to provide a coastal radar system as the first cooperation program under the newly established OSA. Through OSA, we will create a desirable security environment for Japan and actively contribute to maintaining and strengthening peace and security in the region and the world. OSA being the official security assistance. Now, when it comes to maintaining peace in the Indo-Pacific region, China is an indispensable factor that cannot be disregarded. While there are various potentials between China and Japan, there are also many challenges and concerns that, as I have already mentioned. Peace and stability across Taiwan Strait is also important. At the same time, both Japan and China have major responsibilities for peace and prosperity of the region as well as international community. It is important to comprehensively promoting mutually beneficial relationship based on common interests of strategic nature, and through the efforts of both sides build constructive and stable relationship, which consists of asserting what needs to be asserted and responsible behavior while maintaining a firm dialogue, including on various issues of concern and cooperation on matters of common challenges. As important as two major tasks I have mentioned so far, namely maintaining and strengthening the free and open international order based on rule of law and managing competition between the nations, is how to protect people, especially those who are most vulnerable, especially with the current rapid increase in number of migrants and refugees forced to flee their homes due to conflicts and climate changes. It is important to shed light on existence of people who are not under state protection. Japan has always promoted human-centered international cooperation based on the concept of human security, which focuses on each individual. In order to lead international community towards cooperation and away from division and confrontation, Japan has appealed to the international community to aim for a world where human dignity is protected. Human dignity is exactly the idea that all countries can respect and strive for together, overcoming differences in various regions. When we think about current international society and consider issue of protecting individual people and respecting a human dignity, the first thing that comes to my mind may be the situation surrounding Israel and Palestine. More than 4 months have passed since the brutal terror attack by Hamas and others occurred on October the 7th of last year, and fighting began in the Gaza Strip. However, despite calls from the international community even now, the release of many hostages has not been achieved, and the humanitarian situation in the area has become even more difficult as the fighting drags on. Japan unequivocally condemns the terror attack by Hamas and others that have claimed many precious lives, and we will continue to call for immediate release of the hostages. At the same time, it must prevent further loss of innocent lives in Gaza at all costs. Vulnerable people such as children, women, including pregnant women and nursing mothers and elderly, are exposed to the conflict. Japan will continue its effort to save as many lives as possible. Japan calls on all the parties concerned to act immediately from humanitarian viewpoints in order to ensure a conducive environment for sufficient humanitarian assistance activities, as well as to lead to the release of remaining hostages, therefore resulting in the realization of a sustainable ceasefire. In addition, in order to prevent recurrence of the current tragedy, now is the time for Japan to actively contribute to cooperation with relevant countries towards the realization of the two-state solution that international community has consistently supported. The SDGs, with their commitment to leave no one behind, also resonate with the Japanese foreign policy, which has focused on individual people. Towards the summit of the future to be held in September this year, it is time for Japan to take on the new challenges of building a sustainable society with a renewed focus on the SDGs and the goals of the Paris Agreement. As the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I intend to take on unprecedented challenges of involving all stakeholders and to open up new horizons for Japanese diplomacy. As specific initiatives, I will work on the leveraging of ODA to mobilize funds beyond the boundaries of the public and private sector in order to meet the enormous financial needs required to build a sustainable society. I'm pleased to announce the first meeting of the advisory panel on new financing for development on the 1st of March, which will be held under my leadership. Under this process, I will receive recommendations on how new ODA ought to be and quickly finalize concrete measures for bold mobilization of funds for development. Another new challenge for Japanese diplomacy is to promote WPS as one of its major foreign policy issues and to link it to concrete initiatives. Based on the WPS approach, focusing on women and girls who are vulnerable in times of conflict and disaster is to shed a light on the individuals, persons, and to embody the SDGs, which is based on the principles of leaving no one behind, as well as human dignity. It is with this strong desire that I myself have consistently worked to promote WPS. While utilizing the newly established task force within the ministries, we will focus on WPS in our assistance to Ukraine and the Middle East, and will use every tool at our disposal to promote WPS in our diplomacy. As I discussed with the President of Panama and Foreign Minister of Mexico during my visit to Latin America, I would like to incorporate WPS in our migration measures and will continue to work with regional countries and international organizations in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have shared with you my views on 3 issues that must be addressed in order to bring stability to a changing international community. Maintaining and strengthening a free and open international order based on the rule of law, managing competition. Excuse me. Between nations and efforts to protect people, including the most vulnerable, are precisely ideas that are in line with the strategic annual report 2023 just released by Japan Institute of International Affairs. As Minister for Foreign Affairs, I place great importance on listening to the voices of people and conducting diplomacy that is understood and supported by people. Therefore, I will listen carefully to the discussions that you will have here, and as Minister of Foreign Affairs, I will translate them into concrete actions in Japanese diplomacy. I would like to reflect together with you about today's theme, how to build a stable international security and cooperation in the world in turmoil. I look forward to fruitful discussions at this Tokyo Global Dialogue, which brings together the wisdom of the world. I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Kamikawa Daijin.
Minister Kamikawa, thank you so much. For the discussion that will happen tomorrow at Tokyo Global Dialogue, you have given us a great insight. Thank you so much. The audience in this hall, if you could stay in your seat, please. Minister Kamikawa, thank you very much. Madam Kamikawa, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please send her with a round of applause. Minister Kamikawa, thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much. I thank the audience. With this, we would like to conclude the opening program for the 5th Tokyo Global Dialogue. For those of you who are joining online, I would like to make some housekeeping announcement. From 9 a.m., we will have the day 2 of the 5th Tokyo Global Dialogue.